Hey guys, what's going on? Dead on 3 here, back once again for another classic horror review. And for tonight's review, I'm going to be talking about the 1980 horror flick Terror Train, which stars Jamie Lee Curtis. And I must say, this one was one movie that I remember renting several times back at my local movie store when we used to have one. We used to have a movie gallery here, and it was one of them that I always enjoyed, revisiting every once in a while. But, one reason why I wanted to see it was, well, first, Jamie Lee Curtis is in it. And, this film was, of course, made, in the years following her big success with Halloween, where she basically played, in several slasher films that came out, in the late 70s and early 80s. This is one of the ones that I think is talked about a lot more. But basically the film takes place on a train, like I said, and it's basically a group of college students that are just, they're coming back, they just got out of med school, and they're basically throwing this huge New Year's Eve party on this train, going out, having some drinks or whatever. And one thing that's funny is that they're all dressed up in different costumes. And they all have their own theme. Like, one character is dressed up like an Uncle Sam, one character is dressed up like the creature from the Black Lagoon, and so on. And they're all in these different costumes. Well, Jamie Lee Curtis, she plays a girl named Elena, and she's in a relationship with this guy who is actually studying to become a doctor. And 3 years prior to this, she was involved in a prank, but from one of the basically a prank in her school from one of the basically the guys that was a freshman. They played a prank on this guy at this house party where he basically walks in and he thinking that he's going to have sex with Elena, and when he gets upstairs he thinks that she's laying in the bed. Turns out it's actually a stiff, and it turns out that one of the guys that works, that's one of the students, ends up putting a stiff dead body of a girl just laying in the bed. So when the guy finds the dead body, he ends up going, of course, going crazy over it, and he's like a nerdy character, they have to walk around with these little basically all the virgins have to walk around with these little beanies, and once they lose their virginity in college they can take them off, and it's basically a fraternity thing, and that ends up driving him insane. And 3 years later, she still has Elena still has gripes with her on her boyfriend for making her do that, making her do that to that poor guy, because of course he assumed that he was going to be having sex with her, and she, just a horrible prank that caused him to go insane. So she has kind of grips with her boyfriend about that. She also has grips with her boyfriend's best friend, who is the guy that was the one that did the entire prank, and he's had a reputation of doing a lot of different pranks around the college, or just one of those typical party boys, thinking he can get away with everything. So she of course is grumbling with her boyfriend, doesn't like him. Well, it turns out that he was the one that planned the entire party on the train, and her boyfriend paid for it all. So that's pretty much how those characters get into it. There's also a conductor that is an older gentleman. I can't remember his name right now, but I've seen him in several other films. And there's also a musician in the magician. My bad, not musician, a magician in it. And one thing that's kind of cool is that the magician is actually played by David Copperfield. And I didn't know, who he was until much later on when I saw the film as I got older, and I just thought it was kind of cool that David Copperfield was in this movie. Well, of course, as they're all having fun at the party, one of their friends ends up getting murdered, of course, and the killer ends up taking their friend's costume, which is this really cool, like, he's got a conductor hat, and it's a massive big nose, and he's basically just going around, and like every single other slasher flick, just going around and killing random people. And you really have no idea, who it is, because throughout the entire film, he changes costumes throughout the entire movie. So, yeah, that is I thought that was a pretty good idea. I'm not gonna get into any more of the story because I don't want to give anything away. Of course, this has one of those typical, sort of twists at the end. But it's one of those twists that I think if you watch the film, you kind of know it's gonna happen eventually, so you kind of expect it. But I thought this movie is a pretty decent slasher flick. I know it's talked about more, now with the new Scream Factory release that just came out. The movie was just re-released, which I really love the cover for the Scream Factory release. It's a really awesome cover. So I'm really hoping that this movie gets more recognition and gets seen by more people now, because I think it's one of the better early '80s slasher flicks. Now there's of course some things I don't really like about it. I thought that the acting could have been a little bit better. Of course, you can really tell that there are some scenes that they took exactly from, well, not exactly from it, but you could tell that they sort of borrowed scenes from maybe Halloween or other films. Like at one point, Jamie Lee Curtis is trapped in is in a room, and she's trying to hide from the killer, and she ends up opening up one of the closets and getting out a coat hanger, which, if you guys, in Halloween, she stabs Michael Myers' eye out with a coat hanger. So, you can see that that's it. But then again, you can also say that that's more of a shout out to that movie. I'm not saying I'm not saying that they borrowed it or that they took that idea. I'm just saying it's more of a shout out, But yeah, I thought the gore in it was pretty good. You don't really see that many people get stabbed in this movie, which I think is kind of cool because, I don't really consider this. At one point I considered it a slasher flick, and at another point I don't consider it because there's not that many people that get killed by a knife. At one point some guy gets his head smashed into a mirror. There's a girl that just gets strangled, so it's not just a guy running around with a knife. He uses several methods of, killing in this movie, which I thought was a pretty good, a pretty good idea. But, I'd say I would recommend the film. I definitely recommend picking it up. If you're a fan of, 80s slasher flicks, then this is definitely one that really, I think, sticks out. And if you're a fan of Jamie Lee Curtis, I'd also recommend picking it up because I think that this is one movie that, compared to other films like Halloween or Prom Night, movies that came out, because she did Prom Night a year in 1981, which was a year after this movie came out. This is sort of like, one of those movies that sort of gets, I guess you could say, downplayed a little bit because I don't hear as many people talk about Terror Train as Prom Night or Halloween, but I do think that it deserves more recognition, and I think it should be seen by more people. So anyway, guys, that was just a quick review for Terror Train. If you guys have seen Terror Train, definitely let me know what you guys think about it because I really think it's one of those movies that I think should be seen by more people. And yeah, guys, so I've got a lot more reviews coming up. I'm probably going to do one more review this week, and I've got a lot more reviews coming up next week, so stay tuned for those. Thanks everyone for watching this review. Like I said, let me know what you guys think about Terror Train. Let me know if you're going to pick up the new Scream Factory release. Thanks everyone for subscribing, and yeah, see you guys next time. Later.